Welcome to the Big World Made Small podcast for the adventure traveler. I'm thrilled you're here. My name is Jason Elkins, and in addition to being your host, I'm also a former U.S. Army paratrooper, third-generation commercial hot air balloon pilot, paramotor pilot, ex-Montana fly fishing guide, advanced open water scuba diver, and a full-time nomad that's visited more than 30 countries on 6 continents. As a seasoned adventure travel expert with a passion for creating and sharing meaningful experiences, I'm on a quest to impact the lives of adventure travelers, tour operators they rely on, and the communities that host them. Every week, I bring you exclusive interviews with fascinating adventure tourism experts who have agreed to share their personal stories, favorite destinations, and some invaluable travel insights they've picked up along the way. We'll enjoy a casual conversation, create some connections, and likely share some laughs. It's my hope that by the end of each episode, this big world will feel just a bit smaller. Let's get started, shall we? Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Big World Made Small podcast for the adventure traveler. So happy to have each and every one of you back here today, and excited to have our guest as well. We've got Andrew Lamb. He's the founder of Whales Outdoors. Andrew, welcome to the show. Happy to have you here.
Glad to be here. Good afternoon to you, Jason.
We're gonna have a fun conversation. We spoke about a week ago or so, and I just thought, man, we need to come back and have a conversation, learn a little bit about whales, because I don't know too much about it. Know very little about it, but mostly want to get to know you, kind of figure out your story and figure out how the heck you got from where you are to where you are now. But before we jump into that, let's give our listeners kind of an idea. What is Whales Outdoors? What do you guys do?
So, backstory really quickly. Whales Outdoors has had many iterations, and currently it's a guided hike company covering all of Wales and a guided tour company, so taking visitors around castles, that kind of thing. So it's a mixed bag, offering, I suppose, guided tours of, guided tours of hikes or castles or landscapes, but across Wales. So based in the south east of Wales, but I like to get around the whole country.
Very, very cool. Are these all day hikes? You do multi-day adventures, groups? Tell us a little bit about that.
Hiking wise, tends to be day hikes. However, occasionally when I'm kind of driven, I will advertise something that's more adventurous and multi-day. However, the kind of multi-day adventure hike that I enjoy doing is a niche product, really. It's hard work. It's carrying your own tent, cooker, food, that kind of thing. It's backcountry hiking, I suppose. The amount of people that want to do that in Wales when we do get very good days of weather and runs of weather, but you've got to be aware that it's probably going to rain. So it's a limited client base.
I can imagine. And I saw the look on your face when you kind of said, well, when I feel driven, I was like, okay, this sounds like something that's work. It's like when I say when I feel motivated, then it means it's going to be something that requires a little extra motivation. And I'm sure a lot more work for you just logistically. And yeah, I get that completely. What is your typical guest? I don't know if you have a typical, I'm sure you have a typical guest, but are they mostly people from the UK, or do you get people from, the States, other places as well?
That's a really good question. And over the history, Whales Outdoors is over 30 years old now. So over the history of the time that I've been delivering products through Whales Outdoors, the client base has changed and continues to change. So today I've got a local social hiking group, and that's a very low cost. We meet once a month, go for a hike in southeast Wales or mid Wales. That's that. So there is a local base to the business. But post COVID, when I found that business really didn't bounce back, I went for the overseas market, so the inbound tourists to Wales. And I would suggest, I know that the majority of business that I get throughout the season, from April to September, the majority of them are overseas clients. So many of whom from the United States, and I'd say that's the biggest client base that I have. And then the rest would be Europe, Australia, Canada. Yeah.
Why do you mentioned that the local business didn't really bounce back? So you shifted focus. I get that. Why do you think that is? Why did it not bounce back? Is that just curious?
I've got two theories, Jason.
All right. Oh, we're going to get into this quick. All right.
So the reason why the very popular pre-COVID social hiking group, didn't bounce back. I have to lay the blame for that at the door of Facebook.
Hmm.
And the issue there was that in February or March of 2022, Facebook switched off organic sharing of events. My local client base were finding the hikes that I was doing through Facebook events, and I was getting 25,000 impressions, 50,000 impressions on an event, which gives me enough impressions to get enough people to come along to make it a worthwhile event.
Well, either that event or just in general, the awareness of your brand and what you're doing and all that stuff. I'm sure, yeah.
Absolutely. So, and it didn't just affect me, it affected the majority of event-based businesses. So, a small band that were putting out their events, they weren't getting any reach on Facebook. So if you were reliant on Facebook at that time to get your new clients, it was kind of switched off. And I think that's gone to Meta moved to a payment model. There is also another reason, and the other reason, I think, certainly in the UK, the work-life balance shifted. So I was providing events at weekends for local people who were busy 5 days a week at work. That completely changed during COVID. And certainly in Wales, the majority of people haven't gone back to a 9 to 5, 5 day a week existence. They're on hybrid working, and they kind of spread their work out throughout 7 days, taking afternoons off when the weather's good and things like that. So I think that's also a contributing factor.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Both of those make perfect sense. And what you mentioned about the hybrid, people shifting to that, I suspect that that's something a lot of operators in other countries see as well with their local audience, because, we see it across the board. People are just I know I do. I work remotely, but I worked all weekend because I had things I needed to get done. And then I might take some time off on Tuesday or something like that. So that makes a lot of sense.
My Saturday hike wouldn't work for you, would it? So because you're gonna take time off on Tuesday because you can catch up on Saturday.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas when you've got the tourists, somebody coming from the States or other parts of Europe or Australia or whatever, they're kind of on vacation. Now, that doesn't mean that some of them aren't also working while they're on vacation. That's the other thing that kind of, I don't know if it sucks. I guess it makes it easier for people to travel, but at the same time, you used to be able to kind of legitimately say, hey, I'm going away with the family for a week, and so I just won't be able to get anything done. But since your whole job has transitioned into a remote type of job or a hybrid type of job, I think employers probably expect you to, stay in touch a little bit better, where you could just disappear in the past, I think.
So, Jason, the only people I know that completely switch off their emails are government employees.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're right there. Yeah, that's a whole other conversation. But I think you're right. I think people it is harder to turn off. What about on your hikes? Along those lines, do you have no checking emails policy when you're out with your clients? Does that come up? Is it a challenge to keep people kind of focused and present?
The local hikers that I have, they're not checking their phones. They're pulling out their phones to take photos. That's
Right.
it. International, I don't know what they're doing because half of them will be phone in hand for most of the time. And a lot of that is taking photos. Much of it is taking video. I've seen a big rise in the amount of people that are coming out, and I'll have a conversation with them and I'll say, well, what do you do for a living? Oh, I'm developing myself as a reseller, a salesperson, and I'm doing it through TikToks or YouTube videos. So, yeah, I think that they are working when they're taking videos,
Mm-hmm.
but they're working on creating themselves as a brand. Yeah.
So what I hear you saying is kind of that the label influencer, right? They're trying to build an audience so then they can do affiliate marketing or whatever number of things people are doing. That makes sense, and that's a pretty big shift probably. When did you start to see that?
Oh, there's quite a funny story. I think the first time would have been, it was two American women that I picked up from Cardiff. They had booked a day hike up to the summit of Pennyvan. That's the highest mountain in South Wales. And we got most of the way. And then they said, we just want to do a quick photo shoot. And I thought it was a bit odd because one of the women was wearing a kind of an old-fashioned tweed suit. And so they did this photo shoot. And I said, what's going on? She's dressed as the Queen. And this looks a little bit like Balmoral, the landscape. It looks like Scotland. So we're pretending she's in Scotland. We didn't get to the summit of the mountain, but I took them to two other places that had royal connections in South Wales. And as we got to each place, we stopped the car and she got out, the one in the tweed suit, and she said, just wait a minute, I'm just going to get changed. And one time she got changed into 60s mini dress that Princess Anne once wore. And then also she changed into a dress that Catherine had worn just a couple of weeks before when she visited Aberfan, which is where there was a dreadful mining disaster in the late 1960s. So I think she was doing this off the back of, I think, is it a Netflix series, The Crown? It could be Prime, I don't know, but yeah, either one. But a big series called The Crown that followed the life of the Queen, really, through childhood right the way through. And Aberfan was featured quite highly in that series, so that was a good place to visit. But yes, that was the first time. I couldn't believe how much work she was putting into it, and I asked her friend, how many followers does she have? I expected thousands, and she had 500. Oh, yeah. So a lot of work, but she was building. I don't know how far she's got.
Wow. As I was listening to you, like, I don't necessarily like the word product, but we use it, right? When you think of developing new products and stuff, like new experiences, there's different words we can use. But as I was listening to you, I was imagining you, little light bulbs going off in your head, or they were going off in mine just listening, thinking, oh, maybe do we do an influencer package?
Yeah,
It's 3 days. They stay in a nice hotel, and then I take them to scenic places so they can take pictures and do their videos, and just specifically target them. I don't know. Did any new products come out of have any new products cropped up in your mind, or that you've developed, or places you take people now because of so much attention to Instagram and TikTok and influencers? Or do you just kind of do your own thing? And
that's a great question. I mean, the tours that I've developed are tours that I want to do myself. And they do change over time, really to maintain a freshness of delivery. My wife, Kate, she's currently undergoing training to become a Southwest Wales tourist guide.
Okay.
So she'll be adding new products in, but tried and tested products. You know, I'm kind of also driven by the influencers. So it's less coming from me. It's going to be more coming from their side. Take one area in the Brecon Beacons National Park. It's called the Waterfalls area of the Brecon Beacons. It's hugely popular, and people travel, I think, from all over the world to go to this one place to see 4, 5 or 6 waterfalls. And they're very much worth seeing. It's a lovely environment. But, you know, it kind of astounds local people if they approach somebody and say, oh, where are you from? And they say United States, and say, well, where you been? Flew to Paris, and then I flew over to London and came straight here because I want to see the waterfalls. It's local people don't necessarily value the locations as much as people from overseas do.
And I'm curious because, well, a couple things. I'm guessing it probably gets kind of crowded, because a lot of those types of places can get very crowded. Number one. Number two, you know, so many people are going to places so they can get that Instagram picture, or so they can get that look where I was. I'm not knocking it. I think it's good when people get out and explore the world. Most motivations are pretty good if they get out and see new things. I guess what I want to ask you is, if you get 2 inquiries come in at the same time, and you've got one that wants to go get the Instagram glam photos at these waterfalls, and the other, 2 people, and another one is like, hey, we just want to go check out some, we just want to find some seclusion and we just want to kind of go enjoy nature and enjoy the moment. And we don't even want to take pictures. We just want to be super present. And the pay is the same. Which one are you going to do?
Jason, the key to being able to take both bookings and do them at the same time, which is what any tour provider really ought to be aiming for, is to make sure the walk is long enough and adventurous enough to satisfy somebody who wants peace and quiet.
Mm-hmm.
I'll talk to you a little bit about the overcrowding in a sec. But and the other is to allow enough time for those at various stops for people that want to get loads of photos and video. Just give them enough space to be able to do that. Overcrowding is an issue, certainly in the waterfalls area, certainly on some mountains in Wales. So maybe about 10 years ago, Wales Outdoors, myself and my wife, we made the decision to, during the high season, not take any bookings at weekends. Now that is it's financially damaging to us because we lose a lot of the British market because we're not taking bookings at weekends, or at least not taking bookings on our standard tours. So we will take private bookings where we can direct people away from the busy areas. But we run small group. I'd say they have to be now small group, high value tours. Generally working a maximum of about 7 to 8 clients per guide. And if we've got people paying a substantial amount to come out with us to cover our costs and to make some profit, we don't want to be taking them to a theme park.
Okay.
And a few places are kind of a bit like a theme park on weekends and bank holidays. The UK has several holiday Mondays throughout the year, and they're usually very busy days in the outdoors, especially if the weather's great. Yeah.
Sounds like a great business decision on many different levels. I'll tell you what I'm imagining, and you can, correct me if I'm kind of missing it, but most of your clients are coming from overseas, so they're on vacation, so they've got some flexibility in their schedules. So the person that you say, nope, it's not available on Saturday, they'll probably go on Friday, Tuesday, or whatever.
Yes, so our overseas clients, they will have that flexibility.
Yeah.
Often some will plan to visit Wales when they know that we've got a tour available that they want to do.
Yeah. And you don't have the people that, they read all the great reviews on your website, or wherever, and they decide, oh, we want to go. And then you take them on a Saturday and it's crowded. And then they write a review because, oh my gosh, they took it to this place. It was so crowded, da, 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 da. Why take that risk when you can probably get that same person to go on Thursday?
It's kind of directing people, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I love that.
And also it's good for the environment. It's good for the local communities. So, generally when we're on a tour, there are opportunities for our clients to spend money either at cafes or gift shops and things like this in the communities that we're visiting.
Mm-hmm.
It's unlikely we would do that on a very busy weekend because there may not be any seats in the cafe available and the gift shop might look a bit too crowded. So we're spreading tourism out into even though we're in the high season, we're using the days which are kind of the low volume days during the high season.
It sounds like a sustainable tourism strategy on a kind of a micro scale. We talk about, well, I don't know if it's micro scale, but I get what you're saying. I think that's pretty cool. And I also want to know, was that also just a peace of mind thing for you guys? Like, hey, we can kind of just take weekends off and not deal with the crowds and not be stressed out by trying to find a spot to park or a place for the clients to eat lunch and that type of thing. It just makes life easier too, right?
Much easier. And if we're doing something that's adventurous, safer. We're walking on footpaths that if they're crowded, then people do get too close to each other on occasion. We don't want that. So within the UK as a whole, and I think this is also the case globally, there is a lot of discussion about pressure on honey spot locations. I think it's important for tourism providers to make individual choices. Now, not everybody would be able to say, I'm not going to work weekends. But we can choose if we do work weekends, where to work, and try to move our clients away from the busy spots. So as I said, I will take work at weekends, but those will be private bookings and usually a group booking. So a couple of people, they would buy me as a guide for a day, and I would advise them that, no, we're not going to go to Pennyvan, but we've got all these other options. Which ones do you want to do? Yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like an awful lot of clients kind of come to you with, this is the place, we saw this on Instagram, this is where we want to go, and you probably figure out that there's other options, there's better options, but I guess what percentage of people say come with a specific place they want to see, do you think? Or is that hard to tell because they book on your website and they just pick a tour, I guess, but what's your take?
That's a really good question. I think you're going to be amazed by the answer. You know, I said some of our tours are quite high value. We get people that book tours, turn up, and they don't know what they've booked onto. They just, I've got a free day. This guy's the only one that's available. I'll spend the money and not just do it.
Surprised as you might have thought, but I'm curious because, you know, things probably more so now, people are more tuned in with, you know, Instagram and social media and stuff, but I'm not terribly surprised. I remember when I was a fishing guide in Montana, you know, I spent a lot of time on the Yellowstone River. It's like one of the most famous rivers in the US anyway. And people come there and they'd book a fishing trip, and sometimes halfway through the day, they're like, so what river is this? I'm like, yeah. Whoa, they just were in the area and wanted to go fishing. They had no clue what was around, and they hired a guide, and you're like, wow, you're floating down the Yellowstone River. You just paid $400 or $500 to do this, and you don't know what river you're on. And I was like, okay. So, and
it never ceases to amaze me.
Yeah, you know, so what? They're doing something. They don't need to know where they're going. I actually like tours. I could probably show up in Wales and, you know, just, hey, Andrew, I don't know where we should go, you know, but I'd love to spend a day with you. Show me some stuff. That's kind of the way I am.
Yeah.
So there's a wide range of people. So that's pretty cool. You mentioned something about your wife getting or training to get certified or whatever as a guide for Southwest Wales certified. I don't remember the exact term you used, but then I wanted to.
Tourist guide, I think.
Okay. Yep. So does Southwest Wales have its own guide training program, certification program? I just was curious about that.
Okay. So in the UK as a whole, there is no requirement for anybody leading guided tours for tourists to have any qualification. However, there is an association of guides, several associations across the UK, one that's all of the UK, and then within Wales, a separate association that's affiliated to the national. And these offer professional training for tourist guides. It's actually, when I did my qualification, I would go so far as to say it was one of the hardest things I've ever done.
Mm-hmm.
Simply because everybody undertaking the training were having to do things that were outside of our normal kind of sphere of knowledge. And this is part of the training. It's to make sure that you're going to be able to take tourists around attractions and cities and landscapes in a safe manner, whilst also delivering a wide variety of information.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, for example, we did an exam towards the end of the course, the Pan Wales exam. So this is an exam covering Wales, but it covers history, society, politics, geography, geology, and we don't know what the questions are going to be. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of quite a stressful exam because you can't cram one small area of one subject and know that you're going to pass because you've done the revision. The questions are random, and if you didn't know that bit of history, well, you can't answer it correctly, can you? So yeah, so it was quite tough. The training also trains you to be a guide on coaches, so the person who sits at the front of the coach and explains to everybody behind them what's going on with their journey. And yeah, it's about delivery of your content as well, and also research skills. So research skills with the when you decide to bring in a new location.
Okay. Do you feel like the training experience that you had aligned well with the realities of being a tour guide. So I guess I'm not trying to ask you to judge the program or the association or whatever. I'm just like, I guess here's a better way to ask this. If somebody had never been a guide, but was fairly outgoing and went through this training program and then they came to work for you, would they feel like, okay, the training I went through aligns well with the actual job?
So I wouldn't employ somebody that wasn't qualified.
Okay.
Because I make it a condition of it's a USP for the business is that everybody's qualified. And I think it's important to do that to support the Association of Guides. One of the problems we have in the UK, because there isn't a legal requirement to be a qualified guide, it's probably the same across much of the world, because, you know, how much training do you need to do a food tour walking around a city centre? If you want to do it really well, the training does come in exceptionally handy. So I highly rate the training for tour guides. The training for tour guides is delivered in the same way in all European countries, because it's covered by an overarching European organization that kind of monitors the standard of training.
Okay.
I think tour guide training is very important. If you've got somebody who's effusive and personal and knowledgeable, there's no reason why they shouldn't do a tour, and there's no law to stop them in the UK. However, being a qualified tour guide also means you've got access to tour guide insurance and all this kind of stuff as well. So I would say it's unwise to step outside of the box, because if anything ever did go wrong and somebody got a serious injury and took you to court, you'd need to be able to justify what you were doing in front of a judge.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily need to do that, because I've got the weight of the qualification behind me.
Yeah, that's a really good point that people tend to not think about until it's maybe a little bit too late. But you mentioned things like, insurance and all that stuff. But technically, if I wanted to put up a website and say I'm doing hiking day tours anywhere in the UK, they're not going to come arrest me when I show up with my clients or whatever. But if okay. How long is the...
Here's one for you, Jason.
Yeah.
You'll find this surprising, I think. And I don't think this is the case in some other European countries, but you could come across to Wales and I could take you out for a day's climbing. The very next day, overnight, you could build your website and just, you've got some understanding of tying a couple of knots and how to belay. Yeah, you can be a climbing instructor in the UK for adults. So you can't take children on their own, but you would be able to take adults and their own children. So quite amazing.
Well, maybe the one caveat, though, is since I am not legal to work any job in the UK, then that might be the issue. So there might be, you just can't work. You know, if you've got a work permit, then you can be a climbing guide.
Yeah.
But okay.
It wasn't an offer anyway, Jason. So.
Oh, darn it. No, I've been climbing a bit. It's not something I would want to be responsible leading people up the side of the mountain. Yeah, that's pretty serious. How long is the training program?
So it's 6 months.
Wow.
It's quite intensive. So I think, 6 months. And it's a minimum of 1 day a week in-person time, and then quite a few days of doing research throughout the week. So it's not something you can easily do while you've got another job. At least you wouldn't be able to devote as much time as you should to it if you did have something else on the go.
I guess the scenario I imagine is maybe work for the tour company in some other capacity. You know, clean vehicles, help with reservations, do something like that while you're going to school, because. And anybody that signs up for something like that, you pretty much know that they're serious about it, because presumably there's a financial investment as well, not just time. So yeah, it's pretty smart as a business person to say, look, I'm only going to hire people that have done this, because not only is it part of your USP, your unique selling position, or that all of your guides are certified, but it also probably helps you with turnover, because you don't get somebody who just woke up one morning and decided, I think I want to be a guide. They've got a good personality. And then you hire them and you train them for, and then 2 months later, they're gone. And anybody that has done a 6-month program, they're, if they still want to be a guide at the end of those 6 months, then they're probably going to stick around a while.
Yes. One of the issues that we do have is age of guides. So it tends to be that the age is older rather than younger. It'd be great to have a few more younger guides in tourist guiding. Yet plenty of younger mountain guides are around. So I think that's something to do with obviously youthfulness and fitness and things like this, but also a broad generalization. I think a younger person doesn't see somebody holding up an umbrella with 10 people following them in a city center as that kind of a sexy thing as compared to we're going climbing up a mountain today. So there's a difference of view of these two different styles.
Have you given thought to how, what should the Guide Association do to help bring in more younger people? I mean, do you guys have conversations about this?
I don't. I'm not at that level. So
no, but they didn't ask.
The executive.
Here's your opportunity. They're going to listen to this.
Yeah, they probably do. I don't know how we do it. It would be great if the executive had a word with the university and made it part of a tourism degree. And so tourism graduates are leaving with this qualification. That would be fantastic.
Well, because if you're going to school for hospitality and tourism, or even outdoor recreational type program or something like that, and come out as a certified guide, and then a lot of people that I've had on this podcast started out as guides, right? At a younger age, that was their first opportunity, and then they've grown up to build these larger businesses, all the way up to people are working at high levels in these big businesses, and they got their start working as a guide. So it seems like it would be a good service for the university and the association to kind of help that make that happen, just for people and just for long-term investment in the community.
It'd be fantastic. And
in case they're listening,
one of the things I think every country does badly is give the ability or enable young people to have life skills. Just for example, something that was discussed in the UK was every school child, when they leave school, has a valid first aid certificate. So just something like that, a life skill that they may never use, but often an employer will put them through a first aid course anyway. So it's already done. So it's something that they can say, I'm already first aid trained. Somebody attending a tourism hospitality degree, they leave with an actual qualification that they can then use directly in the workplace straight away. Fantastic, isn't it?
They could actually get a job. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yep.
Kids getting out of university with job credentials. That would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right. So I think we covered a bit of what Wales Outdoors is, and we went into a lot of cool stuff. But now I want to dig into how the heck you got to where you are, because the business has been around for 30 years, I believe you said. So let's go back further than that. I don't want to just go back 30 years, and I'm not going to ask you your age, or you look very young, but how far back do we need to go, Andrew, to get kind of a feel for how you ended up in this?
Well, originally I'm from Southeast London, and I had a great geography teacher. So any teachers out there listening, you hold the future of your pupils in your hands. If you do great stuff with them, they will remember, and it will influence lives. So I certainly was influenced by the geography teacher. He ran the outdoor pursuits program in school. We did things in that outdoor pursuits program that you could never get away with now. One example is we went on a 2-week tour in Scotland, wild camping. I think it was probably about 15 boys were put onto a boat. We were motored across to an island off the coast of Scotland. We got off the boat. We had our backpacks with us, our food, tents, that kind of thing. The boat just drove off and said back in 24 hours.
Nice.
You could never do that today, but it was a great experience.
This was just the students? Stayed on the island?
Yeah, no teaching staff at all.
I love it.
I would have been 12. I would have been 13 when
Yeah,
that.
if you arranged something like that now, you'd be in jail a long time and
Absolutely.
lawsuits and oh my goodness. Yeah. Uh-huh. That's pretty cool.
When I was in my early 20s, I met a girl from Cardiff. She wanted to move back to Wales, so I accompanied her. We're not in a relationship now. I've got a different wife. I call her my current wife.
Yeah. How
and
does that work for you? Sure, she appreciates that.
once in Wales, I had access to the hills, and I started to, and this is why the teaching is really important, because I remembered that we did all of that stuff in school, and I had done some hiking and things in between, but not a lot. And I got back into it when I was in Wales. I was working for Welsh Water, worked for Welsh Water for 5 years, took a voluntary redundancy with them, and it was so voluntary severance. And I used that money to set up Wales Outdoors, which originally was just mountain bikes and mountain bike guiding. So mountain bike hire and guiding.
Okay. Let's
Yeah.
pause here for a second because I want to, that's a good place to come back to, but I want to dig a little bit deeper kind of into the childhood. You said Southeast London. That means something to people that are familiar with London. What should our listeners know about growing up in Southeast London? First of all, I have no idea.
London.
I don't know what kind of neighborhood that is. I don't know. What was your childhood like, I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah. London is a city possibly now of possibly 10 million. I don't think anybody really knows, but it's going to be 8, 10, 12 million, something like this. A big metropolis. At the time, my school was in central London, so I started commuting to school by train when I was 11.
Wow. By
So
yourself?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
so that was a 30-minute train journey into the centre of London. My commute was about 45 minutes to get to school. London was a good place. Southeast London was a good place to grow up as a child. I've got very pleasant memories. Times are very different now, and they're very different everywhere. So, the story I said about being dropped off on the island by the teacher and said back in 24 hours. I remember walking to school as a primary school student. So probably started walking to school when I was about 6 on my own. And this is just what happened. People were...
Yeah, I was noticing already the trend when you started talking about taking the train alone and then the school outing alone. And as a younger kid, what were your parents like? I mean, obviously, I'm guessing they were pretty, that's just kind of the way was it that way for everybody, or was it just something specific to your parents just really gave you a lot of independence? I guess is what I'm asking.
I think it was that way for everybody. And I'll give you an example very briefly. When I was 13, I said to my mother, can I go on summer holiday with my friends from school? And my mother said yes. All of my friends' parents said yes. We planned a 2-week holiday where we got the train from London to Scotland to Glasgow. It's a very long way. It's like 600 miles. We got a bus from Glasgow to Luss, which is on the banks of Loch Lomond. We blew up the rubber dinghies we'd taken from our parents' garages, and we spent 2 weeks paddling around and camping, wild camping on the islands in Loch Lomond. So, I mean, a bit too adventurous for us, but nobody blinked an eye about it. And of course, if parents were found out today that their kids were off doing this, social services would be called. But it's a different time today.
How did you, I know you're saying everybody, but I hear you saying your friend group. Not everybody wants to go do what you just described, did they? Or, I mean, was there some weird thing going on in Southeast London where all the kids wanted to go do this stuff and had all kinds of independence? I mean, I had a lot of independence, but I grew up out in the mountains, and so I had a lot of alone doing stuff. But I don't know, was it, or do you think there was something specific to your friend group because of the schools you went to or the people your parents hung out with?
It may have been the friendship group. It would have been a lot to do with the adventure training we were getting through the outdoor pursuits program at school. If you didn't have that in your school, then you wouldn't have even thought about doing it, going to Scotland, would you? So,
okay. That makes sense. Okay, that brings us back around to the teacher, the history teacher that changed your life. And now I got my head around it. Thanks for guiding me there. You're a very good guide. I appreciate that. All right. So at that age when you were doing this stuff, what did you think you were going to do? What was like, did you have a someday I'm going to be type of plan or thought process? And I'm just curious what that was.
Yeah, that's something that I've actually thought about on random occasions throughout my life is how did I get to where I am today? And in a way, I think I've been like a billiard ball, just hitting different bits and bouncing off and going with the flow and seeing what works at the point that I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
I've had no real drive to become a millionaire or I had no fixed career plan, if you like. So
okay.
I think I always knew I wanted to be self-employed. But that's kind of about it.
If we had a time machine, and this is just based on what you recollect or what you think maybe you were thinking, but if we had a time machine and we could go back to when you were 16 or 17 and one of your mom's friends, your dad's, or some adult was having a conversation with you and said, Andrew, what do you want to do when you grow up? What do you think would have came out of your mouth?
I think at 16, it would be the lead singer in a very popular punk band.
Okay, very cool. Was there a specific band that you were interested in?
All of them.
All of them. Wow.
Quite amazingly, a lot of them
rock.
Still play today. And we're getting on for, 70s is, we're getting on for 50 years later, aren't we? So, yeah.
That's pretty cool. Would that have been a common response for a teenage boy in Southeast London at that time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But only only within certain groups. So not everybody would have liked punk bands. You would have had different musical types, youth movements that are focused on a certain musical genre.
Mm-hmm.
And your friendship group comes out of that as well, doesn't it? But because within the school that I went to, the friendship group was quite mixed. So people didn't just congregate in a group of punks in a corner and a group of people that like soul over there. We did mix quite a lot. So,
but I think it's a common, in my age group as well. I think a lot of people, I want to be famous. I want to be a singer. I was, I get that. Did you actually your teacher, I think you said actually was a geography teacher, or was it history and geography?
Geography.
It was geography. Okay. Yeah. I just realized that I had mentioned history earlier, but did you end up going to, after you call it high school, secondary school? I guess probably what you call it
secondary
in the UK.
school. Yeah. We've shifted to high school now, secondary school at the time.
Did you happen to go on to university? If so, what was your major? What were you studying?
So I didn't go on to university at that time. And for any young people listening, don't go to university at 18. It's not something I recommend. I would say I went to university later in life, and I did politics and creative writing. Yeah.
Okay. So when you got out of high school, what were you doing? Because I want to work up to,
you said you were working. Work.
You went straight into work doing what kind of work?
Yeah. So I went straight into work for British Telecom, and it was office-based work. And it was amazing because at the time, this wouldn't be the case today. At the time, young people were paid an adult wage from the get-go. So you were on the lowest rung of the pay scale, but you were on the standard adult wage. There was no youth wage or trainee wage or anything like this.
Is that when you say the standard adult wage, are we talking about like minimum wages that are set by the government, or are you just saying that you were pretty well paid? I'm just trying to get my head around what you're saying.
Yeah, so it'd be the salary structure, whatever position you got as a young person. I went in as what was a CA, clerical assistant. And so that was the lowest rung within the organization. And I would have gone in at the lowest pay point on that scale, but
Right.
it was an adult salary. So somebody coming in new to the company who was 30 years old would have been on the same rate as me. So there was no differentiation between young person and older person, which we do have now.
Oh, okay. Because I'm not familiar with that. So when you say we do have now, that's why I was
Yeah.
confused. I hadn't really, I mean, I knew that some jobs were typically filled by teenagers because adults, didn't want to do them, and there was lower pay, but there wasn't there wasn't a system in place that said, oh, if you're 17 doing the same job, you get paid less than somebody that's 19 and doing the same job. But they do that now in the UK?
Yeah. So, well, the situation's different now. So I started work as a 16-year-old. You can't start work as a 16-year-old now. You have to remain in employment until you're 18. And then
you have to remain in school.
In education.
Okay, gotcha.
You have to remain in education till you're 18. And then they have a young person's minimum wage, which is likely what you'll get.
Oh, okay.
So you won't be on an adult pay salary structure. So yes, to get back to what you said, yes, I felt I was absolutely loaded. I was living at home with my parents, paying them a pittance for my room and board, and I had lots of disposable income. It was great.
Okay, so and you started this with any 18-year-olds out there listening, don't go to university right away. And then I hear you say you got a job, you had money, you were staying at home, you had and my son right now is still living with his mom. He's 19. He just got his first full-time job. He's going to tech school, and they got a job in the HVAC industry. And he's like, yeah, he's 3 paychecks in now, and he's like, man, I got money. Now my mom wants me to start paying rent.
Yeah.
And his mom's she's good for her. I think it's great. I'll leave it that way. So why do you say don't go to school right out of school?
Yes. So I would say that now because I think it's really important if you're going to spend 3 or 4 years of your life studying, that you choose the right subject. And I'm not so sure that many 18-year-olds know exactly where they want to go. So they just pick something to go. I've got a feeling that university life for some at that age is problematic. There's lots of drinking and partying all the time, and it does damage some. But more importantly, I think if you are able, find an employer who likes you and will pay for you to go to university whilst you're working for them. And that is something that is certainly available in the UK. And so why would you take out a student loan? And the average debt that a student has in the UK is £50,000 at the end of their degree. I hear that in the United States, certainly if you're Ivy League, it can be $200,000, something like that. So you're saddling yourself with a huge debt, which possibly you could have kind of stepped around by getting a good employer to pay for that for you.
Is that what you were able to do? You had it.
No, I
you said you went back later. You paid for it yourself.
Yeah. I paid for half of it, and the Welsh government paid for the other half. So we have a very strange system in the UK. If you live in England, you pay for everything. If you live in Wales, you pay for half. And if you live in Scotland, you pay for none. It's all funded by the state. So if good advice to somebody living in England as an 18-year-old is move to Scotland,
get a job,
spend
in Scotland.
2 years there, and after the 2 years, then go to university in Scotland. Will pay for it.
All right, very cool. See, anybody that's listening, look at all the useful tips and information we get from our guests. So, all right, very, very cool. Okay, so you were working, you met someone special, and you moved back to Wales with her, right?
Yeah.
And you'd never...
That's where she was from.
Did you spend time in Wales? Did you know anything about Wales?
Yes. So my very first girlfriend was from Wales. She was from Caerphilly, a different woman.
Okay.
Childhood holiday romance. And she was from Caerphilly. And also, going back to the geography teacher, several of our outdoor expeditions took place in Wales, because southeast Wales and the Brecon Beacons are the closest mountains to London. So yeah, it's a 3-hour journey along the motorway called the M.
Are you still in touch with any of the other students that were in this outdoor pursuits group?
No, unfortunately not. However, the geography teacher does follow me on Instagram, and we do exchange a few words every now and again. Yep.
Because I was curious if if any of these other, at the time, were kids, I guess, but if any of them went into kind of, doing stuff similar to what you're doing, outdoor stuff, do you know if any of them headed that direction, or is it just you're the one?
Yeah, I don't think they did. The school that I went to was kind of strange. It was called London Nautical School. It trained it was an all boys school, no girls, and it trained the boys to be merchant seamen.
Mm-hmm.
And so the more adventurous boys, they did go into either the Royal Navy or the Merchant Navy. Like a lot of things in life, it was probably a bad decision to go to that school, although I did get a lot from it, because the UK's merchant fleet collapsed as I left that school. So the UK doesn't have any sort of UK-owned shipping anymore.
All right. When I asked you if we had a time machine and we went back to you're 16 or 17, and somebody asked you, what do you want to do when you grow up? You were going to a nautical school.
Yeah.
That presumably people might choose to go there so they can end up in the Navy or in the merchant marine type of thing.
Yeah.
But you didn't answer, I wanted to be a sailor or a merchant marine or anything. You said you wanted to be a punk rocker. Was there a point when you wanted to be a sailor? I mean, why did you go to that school?
Yes, probably when I was 10 or 11.
Oh, okay.
But
you got that out of your system. And by the time you were 16, you wanted to be a punk rocker. All right.
Yeah.
Cool. What about your parents? Were they hoping you would be an admiral in the Navy or something like that? And presumably they were involved in your decision to go to that school as well.
Yeah, they were. I think they wanted me to go to that school because it had a good reputation, I think. And my father's father, he was a merchant seaman. And my father's brother, it's got a joke really. He worked on the Woolwich ferry, which is a little ferry that goes across the Thames back and forth. So
okay.
we did have nautical stuff in our blood. Yeah.
And we almost missed this. We missed, and I was asking you about your friend group, and now I understand. Oh, you've got the friend group of people that are going to a nautical school that, at least their families, see them as somebody that's going to go sail the world and do all these things. So, okay, I think I'm starting to. You probably had a little bit of a unique friend group compared to maybe some of the other kids. I don't know. It sounds interesting.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. Were your parents disappointed that you didn't go join the Navy or drive a ferry boat or any of that stuff?
No, I think my mother was happy I wasn't away at sea all the time anyway. So I think that was fine.
All right. What did they think when you moved to Wales and eventually opened up a bicycle shop and bicycle guide service?
Well, I think I was quite lucky with parents. My parents were always very supportive. My father often highly critical, which is not necessarily pleasant at the time, but sometimes it's good to have criticism. But yeah, very supportive. And I suppose when you're starting a business and you've got concerned parents, he's going to fritter away his money on something that isn't going to be successful or stuff like that, then it does make you think a bit harder about the decisions you're making within your business, because you've got this critical eye on what you're doing. It can't all be dreams.
You got to prove it right.
You
got to, when they're like, are you sure this doesn't, how are you going to make money doing that? And if you're going to move forward, you're going to I got to figure out how to do this because, and I mean,
I've got people watching me, haven't I?
Yeah, you should have saw
some of it right.
You should have saw the conversations. I'm 52, so 2.5 years ago when I started this podcast. You should have heard the conversations between me and my mother about how, Mom, I figured it out. I'm going to start this podcast and I'm going to build websites for adventure tour operators and she, oh yeah, that was a different conversation. 70 some episodes in just to prove that, Mom, see, I told you I could do this. So
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah. Yeah. So, and what about, was she already your wife? Yeah. I guess she would have been the first wife. I don't want to,
I've only been married
out
once.
of order. Okay.
My current wife is a joke, just a little joke, but yeah, I've only been married once.
One you met and moved back to Wales with, she was okay. I think I got lost on the relationship
UK girlfriend,
status.
I suppose, or partner. Yeah.
Okay. Whatever.
Girlfriend is a younger way of saying it, and partner is a mature way, isn't it? Yeah.
The woman that you were in Wales with, that you went to Wales with, was presumably still involved in your life when you started the business?
Yes, she was.
All right. Was she interested in the business? Was she supportive of that? And the reason I ask is because that can be sometimes a challenge for people that work and, the outdoors and guiding and finding people that are aligned and kind of get it or at least appreciate it, as opposed to the woman, well, can't you just get a real job? Because there's, some people, I've heard that before too. So tell me a little bit about not the details of that relationship. I'm just kind of curious about, starting a new business that's outdoor adventure type of stuff with a partner in your life. What did you learn through that process, and what advice do you have for anybody that's listening that maybe wants to do the same?
Yeah, that's actually a very difficult question to answer. I think within every relationship, there's a different dynamic, and the key is to be financially independent and not impact the relationship with any financial hardship because of decision making that's ongoing, and also not to lean too heavily into time as well. It's very easy to get so involved in your own business that everything else starts to disappear and time just goes. So you need to create time for each other or for people in your life.
Kind of ties back to earlier in the conversation when we were speaking about this hybrid thing where people are working more, across 7 days, but especially when you're an entrepreneur trying to prove to your parents that you can do this, it very quickly becomes completely time consuming. And I remember I've had a few businesses in this space. You touched on the first one, is make sure that your decisions, or try and find a way that your decision isn't going to have a financial impact on the other people, or mitigate that as best you can. Because I remember I don't have a first wife. I had a first wife. I had a second wife. The first wife, when I told, I was doing restaurant management, and when I told her I wanted to quit that and go be a fly fishing guide, and I love her to death. If she ever hears this, I'm not ashamed to say it, but she looked at me and said, Jason, that's the dumbest. She used different words, but she basically said, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard.
Yeah.
But it was because we were married with a young child. I had just got out of the military. I was working as a restaurant manager, and I'm like, I just want to go be a fishing guide. And it was a really dumb idea from her perspective. I didn't end up being a fishing guide later on after we were divorced, so I waited until the right time. But then, so I get that. And that's why I like to ask these questions about relationships and opening businesses and starting businesses, because I know it's something that comes up for a lot of people. So I just thought I'd ask.
I guess it comes down to generally eliminating areas of friction where you can, isn't it? So, where the relationship's going to rub up against what you're doing with the business, if you can foresee what that's going to be, then just try to keep it in mind and try to stop that happening. Yeah.
Right. Very cool. So you mentioned mountain biking, that you were selling bikes, doing tours. What did you actually have, like a storefront?
Yeah. So I set up the first mountain bike guiding business in the Brecon Beacons National Park, and I had a bike hire unit which was close to my house, and it was, I think I probably had about 25 bikes for hire, but mostly I wanted to be out guiding. So I did a mountain bike qualification, bought a load of bikes, did a qualification on bike maintenance, and after about a year I thought, although I really thought this was for me. Coming back off a ride or taking the bikes in off clients at the end of a day and then realizing I'm going to be up until 3 o'clock because they've punctured every tire.
Mm-hmm.
The bike maintenance was the thing that killed it for me. So yeah, it's just too much. But also up by then, I was getting lots of inquiries and people were saying, yeah, do you do anything else other than mountain biking? You know, we want to do gorge walking or hill walking or stuff like this. So
and you're like, holy cow, I just need a pair of shoes and and a water bottle and off we go.
Mountain biking is actually a big investment if you're going to do bike hire as well. But yeah.
And if you don't do the bike hire, yeah, it's still, I mean, I guess it gets a little bit easier, but then I don't know.
Well, you can control where people are going if you're guiding, and you can control their speed. And, you know, you can't control what the environment's doing. So I may have planned to go down a country lane and a hedge cutter has just been in and there were spiky bits of thorns all over the road. So, yeah.
Because even if you're not doing the bike hire, you know, they've got a rental bike or something, they get a flat, it's going to impact you. You know,
absolutely.
Yeah, you're stopping and dealing with that, or maybe you know you don't have enough tubes, or I and I appreciate equipment is a challenge. I had a hot air balloon ride business, and I had a $1,000 hot air balloon that I depended on every time I went out, and guess what? Those get holes in them too.
Yeah.
You know, and they're big and they're heavy, so you got to have somebody to help you move it around. And it was, we used to have some days where, you know, the weather wasn't good. We couldn't fly, but we'd just go out and walk around in the desert and I'd show them cactuses and birds and stuff like that. And it was like, man, I love flying balloons, but it was so much more relaxing to just kind of go on a desert tour and take a walk. It's just more, you know, I didn't have to think about all the other stuff. So I didn't get paid when we do that.
Well, that's what my business developed into. Over the years, it turned into a multi-activity adventure business.
Mm-hmm.
And it was ran through like that until 2015. And then I made the decision at 2015, no, I want to do what I wanted to do when I first started the business, which was guided mountain hikes, guided mountain walking. But I couldn't do the guided mountain walking 35 years ago, because the internet didn't exist in its current form. So if I wanted to take a group hiking, 35 years ago, I had to wait for a fully formed group to approach me and say, will you take us hiking? And then if I was available, yes, I can. And we'll organize a price. Today, with the amazingness of the internet, I can attract 7 individuals, bring them together, and I've made my own group, and I can take them hiking. And so it's much easier for me to be able to plan what work I'm going to be doing. I'm not waiting for a phone call. If I've made a hike available on a day, I know it's going to get some people on it. So it's a lot easier as a business to be able to guarantee a continued income.
I got lost somewhere. Help me with this. In 2015, you decided to go back to do what you originally wanted to do, and now you had the internet, you could do the hikes, you could put together the groups.
Because I can bring individuals together.
Yeah. I get that, but when you described what you were doing before that, I think you called it multi-adventure. How did you define your business before 2015? What did you offer? A
multi-activity business. So I was offering caving and climbing and gorge walking and coast steering and the full range of outdoor adventure activities. Yeah.
Okay, I gotcha. And some of those involve equipment issues as well. So yeah, obviously, if you're just doing the hikes, that makes life a lot easier because presumably, do you typically meet the clients at a meeting spot? Are they responsible for getting themselves there, or do you have vans and go pick people up? And
so, huge cost saving over delivering a wide range of activities. You know, you've got a different helmet for caving as you have for mountain biking, as you have for climbing. So you've got a kit store full of all of these bits of kit that go out of date rapidly. So if you're a diligent adventure activity provider, your helmet really only lasts about 5 years for any of the activities. So you're constantly refreshing. So it was good to get rid of a kit store and get rid of the kit. With regards to meeting people, mostly I pick them up because I'm dealing with clients that are generally staying in Cardiff, the capital city of Wales. They don't have transport, and I'm sure the transport company, Transport for Wales, would say they have excellent service, and they do, but it doesn't generally go to the places that people want to go to. At least if you're a hiker or you want to see beauty spots in Wales, you're not going to get a train to the foot of Pen y Fan, for example, or you won't even get a bus to the waterfalls area of the Brecon Beacons National Parks. I offer a service where I pick them up in my minivan. Currently, I've got 2 minivans, and as I say, they're small. We run small group tours. So one will take a maximum of 7, the other a maximum of 6. Fully electric, which was a bit of a leap in the dark, but since I've got the electric vehicles, they're actually quite easy to live with. I'll pick them up, handhold them through that journey, do the hike, and then take them back and drop them off at the end of the day. So it's a complete service.
So your kit, the term you use, kit, is your equipment package is basically your minivan and your little day pack that you probably carry.
I'll carry a big bag.
Okay.
Because it's got emergency shelter, big first aid kit, spare trekking poles, and all sorts of things.
I wasn't trying to imply that you were girly, man, All right, so you got the big bag.
Yeah.
So you've got that stuff, but do you provide anything to your, do you have guests that need to borrow rain jackets or hiking shoes or anything like that? Or is that pretty much on them to show up with that stuff?
So we leave it to the client's discretion, provide as much information as possible and make it as easy as possible for a client to be able to access the kit that they need. They'll pay for the hike. If they feel that their footwear isn't appropriate, then we do hire out boots, we hire out trekking poles, we hire out day packs and different bits of kit.
Oh, okay.
So they can, whilst they're booking in the same checkout, they can tick a box and we'll bring a pair of boots along for them. Obviously, we'll have a conversation about sizes, but so we make it as easy as possible. But we find that people are generally happy with their own stuff, and sometimes people get a bit wet during a day because their waterproof isn't that good. But it's nothing that's going to end in a disaster.
Do you wish that you could get rid of the boots? Like if you just remove that as an option, obviously that might impact the number of bookings you get, or do you think it would very much? Why? I guess I'm asking you, why do you put yourself through that, presumably out of necessity, but help me understand it.
So we added kit hire in just last year, actually. Up until then, we weren't doing kit hire, but we had a couple of occasions where the most dramatic instance really was somebody that turned up for a 10-mile hike in the waterfalls wearing flip-flops. And as she approached the minivan, I said, "Have you got any other footwear?" She said, "No." And I said, I don't think you can come." And she said, "No, I wear these all the time." So it's like, well, you're an adult. I did a safety brief with the group there. So
you've got witnesses?
Absolutely. All safety briefs in front of everybody.
I
did the safety brief. I explained that this, it's inappropriate footwear. She was adamant that she walks everywhere in them, and she did get round halfway, but then she had to bin it. So it's providing an extra level of service to clients, so that in that instance she could have seen that there were boots for hire, and I don't think she would have hired boots. I think she felt she was happy enough in her flip-flops. But they weren't even outdoor flip-flops. They were kind of beach flip-flops.
Yeah.
But there we are. So that was the kind of most amazing instance of that. But it drove me to think, if I have to say to somebody, absolutely not, you can't come on the walk, then they've already had this chance, haven't they, to rectify their own shortcomings in kit.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's a trip planning, documents and packing lists and stuff like that have always been an interesting challenge for anybody that's doing this type of work. It's because you can provide an awful lot of information, but some people just don't read, and I'm one of them. I'm usually that guy that shows up. I didn't know about
Where are we
that.
going?
Where are we going? Why are you wearing Crocs, flip flops?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But I'll also admit it when I'm like, oh yeah, I really should have read that. That's on me. And yeah. So anyway, all right. So that's what you're doing. What we've discussed a bunch of things. I want to make sure we're not missing anything important. What you're doing with the business sounds fascinating. I really enjoyed your story. Andrew, what do you wish that I had asked you already, or what did I forget to ask you that you want to make sure that our listeners know about either you, Whales Outdoors, whales in general, guiding, life, relationships before we wrap up? Is there anything?
Okay, I think it's important if you've got a business to have a passion for it, and I think the passion should also lead you to want to see innovations in your own industry, or where things can be made easier for other providers, perhaps, or where things can be made easier and safer for clients. So I've been involved in a few innovations in Wales. So I was the catalyst that developed the environmental charter group for outdoor activity providers. Also the catalyst for the South Wales Outdoor Activity Providers Group, which is an organisation that has outdoor activity providers talking to each other. So that's a networking kind of thing, and it delivers safety and best practice. Right now, I'm kind of focused on direct booking. The majority of travelers still use or use OTAs, online travel agencies, and they take between 25, 35%. One will take up to 50% of the ticket price, and that is bad for sustainable tourism. It's bad for the provider, and it's bad for the local community within which the provider lives, because the money is disappearing out of that area and going off to wherever the OTA is based. So I've been working on a platform for Wales that's very easy to onboard to and is direct booking only. So anybody that's on there, any user that's on there, when they see a product and they want to book, they're booking directly with the provider, be that accommodation, attraction, or experience provider. It is a buzzword within the industry at the moment. If you mention direct booking anywhere, maybe LinkedIn or on social media and other social media, people will engage with you and start talking about it. There's a lot of, I would say, I'd use a word as strong as animosity towards the OTAs. In many ways, the OTAs have expanded the consumer's desire to do things, to get out there and do it and take part in experiences that are guided. But I think it's time that those experience providers took back control of their own business environment.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's definitely a hot topic that it comes up in, many of the conversations that we have here on the show is we're discussing that about, getting more direct. The organization that you mentioned sounds kind of like what we'd call a DMO, destination marketing organization. Do you see it that way? Is there any government support? Or, yeah, I mean, I would like to touch on that a little bit more. Is this just, how did that come about? Because I think it's important for other people to hear this as well.
So what I've developed is basically an app, and I don't see the app as, I think it's great. It's got lots of functionality, lots of ways to claw back people to visit it again, and it's also an unbranded app, so it's not my app. It isn't a Wales Outdoors app. So the idea is that any tourism provider could share it with their clients once they've received their first booking, and their clients can then use it to further plan and enjoy their stay in Wales.
Okay.
The key to it succeeding is government. So I am urging the Welsh Government Tourism Department, Visit Wales, to make a small contribution to provide me with a financial contribution, to provide me not with financial support, but with the gravitas and authority that behind it, to say, look, the government are behind it. So you should on board, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing that with all of the local authorities as well. But to be honest, it's going to be a very slow journey. If I have an idea, I move rapidly and I just get it done. You know, a government department or local authority, they need lots of cups of coffee and very many biscuits.
You do know that they might hear this episode, right?
It's fine. They do know me.
Well, because it, oftentimes in these conversations, I realize there's other opportunities. There are organizations out there like Visit Wales. Most tour operators fall within some sort of community that has something like that. And when we talk about direct bookings, that seems like it would be a natural partner, because Visit Wales, I mean, obviously their job is to get as many people to come to Wales as possible. But I don't know that they feel beholden to the OTAs, because the OTAs are going to do their thing anyway. Where if Visit Wales would work with the individual partners to provide a large platform, where they can have direct bookings or even provide some sort of, I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud, but if Visit Wales had a website where you could go on and book pretty much any activity that's available in Wales, even if it was booked through that platform at a very, very, very low commission, or maybe no commission or whatever, that would be tremendously helpful to the local operators. And they're the ones who are voting. So I don't know. Seems like it makes sense.
I mean, Visit Wales has a platform that has a good reach, and any tourism provider can be listed on it. But Visit Wales doesn't have the desire to make it a booking platform.
Fair enough. I mean, yeah.
So the issue there is you get lots of browsing, but you don't get the bookings from it. And it's complicated and difficult for people to plan, because there are no trip planners, or you can't collect several bits of accommodation and several experiences and collect them into one space. So that's what I think's needed, and it needs to be as the minimal amount of clicks as possible to get somebody to make that booking.
Yeah, because otherwise they'll go to an OTA.
And it feels clunky if you go from a Visit Wales platform, for example, then you're off onto a different website and you have to learn the architecture of that website.
Book now, and here's a WhatsApp number, and the expectation, there's a disconnect, right? And then it's, I mean, sometimes, to be fair, well, I'm going to say it, I see a lot of the conversations in the group talk about, we need more direct bookings, and the same person that's like, I want direct bookings, I'm sick of paying da-da-da-da-da, but then you go to their website and there's no mechanism to book on their website. Or just poor information in general, and a WhatsApp number or a contact form that I don't know if they're going to respond to in 3 or 4 days. I'm like, even if I started on their website, I can see where somebody might go to a OTA and book it. So,
I mean, websites need to look good. They need to be functional. They need to always have call to actions to book. And the booking process needs to be quick and easy, because I'm collecting lots of different providers, as I say, accommodation, attraction and experiences. There are a huge number of ticketing platforms that they have, but I've found a way to be able to effectively embed their booking widget or booking page within every single listing that I can put on there. So the platform is available to anybody, no matter what state of what level of booking functionality they have on their own website. And even if they don't have any, it's got an in-house booking system anyway. So
that's cool.
I think all the bases are covered. I just need the Welsh government to at least get behind it with a small contribution. Then I can start reaching out and getting the content in there. I think I've probably got about 50 or 60 businesses on there at the moment, which is a good start. But I don't want to be putting a shout out until I've got more authority from a couple of local authorities and the Welsh government behind it.
What do you think if we do a little 5 or 10 minute video of each person that's participating on the platform? So part of the content is a 5-minute clip of conversation with them on a Big World Made Small podcast or something like that.
That would be great. That would be great. I mean, yeah.
So anyway,
I tell you what works better is previous guest you had, Martin Rosenberg.
Yeah.
I think user uploaded content. So I've just made that available on my app. So a user, if I made a video, like one of the people that comes out with me and they're making, they're influencers and they're making TikTok videos, they'll end up with a shareable link. It would be a Facebook upload or a video or a YouTube. I've made it so it's they puts it 2 bits of information into the form. It takes their video link, but it links it to the product that they filmed it with. So it could be an accommodation or whatever, and then that goes onto a video wall. Which, if you click on that, it opens up the product. It's just great. It just works really well.
And it's cool because most tour operators, like, for example, we discussed it earlier, people out on your trips taking videos, you're guiding, you don't want your clients to feel like they're at a photo shoot for you. They're there for their photo shoot, but you don't, it's pain. It's just not appropriate for you to be doing a bunch of video and, hey, what do you think of this trip? You can do it sometimes, but it's uncomfortable. It's awkward. It's hard to set up.
Yeah.
But your clients, your guests are videotaping stuff constantly, uploading it to TikTok or whatever for their own reasons. So if you can tap into that content, that source of content, to help future people understand what it is you offer, what it is you do, I mean, that's pretty cool. And yeah, the conversation with Martin about that was fascinating. And the whole thing, my whole connection with him was, having that conversation about, video testimonials on your website instead of, but a lot of people have, a carousel of TripAdvisor reviews. Well, that's great, but you've got the TripAdvisor logo on there and like, oh, I'm going to go to TripAdvisor and read more. Oftentimes people link directly to their page on TripAdvisor. Check us out on TripAdvisor. Then the client clicks, or the potential client goes to TripAdvisor, and then when they get to TripAdvisor to read your reviews, there's 3 or 4 other properties, competing properties, and saying, oh, read these reviews too, and people don't even remember where they started. Yeah, it's a challenge where if you had like a little carousel of, I don't know, 5, 10 people that are either on the experience or recently been on the experience chatting about, oh my gosh, yeah, we went with Andrew, it was great, we saw, he took us away from the crowds or whatever, I mean, there's so much value in that stuff. So very, very cool.
Yeah. And the other thing is geographically locating every single product. So that's what I've done with that. So if somebody clicks, they're on the video wall, they see some, like a screen grab of a video, they click on it, of a waterfall, they click on it, they see the waterfall, they like that. They click on that, they'll see the waterfall hike as a product, but then underneath it, they get accommodation, free stuff to go and visit, and maybe some other guided tours by other providers, but it's all geo-tagged. So they get stuff within an area. And I think like, this is the way to go. The way for accommodation to get bookings is to sell it through user uploaded experiences. I think it's definitely the future of tourism.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. We've got a lot of cool stuff with AI, both positive and negative. Everything has 2 sides. Actually, for me, all this AI content out there is fine because it just, people want the real stuff, so they'll come in and watch a conversation like ours and realize that there's no AI going on here other than maybe in the show notes, and maybe it's sorted out a little bit. But anyway, Andrew, it's just a fun conversation. I know we went a bit longer than we had planned, so I appreciate your patience and sharing so much of your time with me and the audience, and look forward to collaborating on some stuff with you in the future.
Yeah, very much so.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for inviting me, Jason. Thank you very much indeed.
All right. We'll chat with you soon. Have a good day.
Okay, bye.
I trust you enjoyed listening to the conversation as much as I enjoyed recording it. If you're enjoying the Big World Made Small podcast, please take a moment to tell the algorithm by subscribing and posting a review so that others can benefit as well. I also invite you to take a quick trip over to bigworldmadesmall.com and join our private adventure travel community to receive new episode notifications, special access to our guest experts, and perhaps even some exclusive partner offers that we haven't discussed on the podcast. I'll publish another episode soon. Until then, keep exploring. It's the best way to make a big world feel just a bit smaller.